Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's a little odd for me to be in front of so many people. It's usually Zoom. So it's like I can see faces, I can see smiles, I can see body language, so it's really great to be here. My name is Hope Petermann, with 2 N's at the end, and I'm with Vox Media. I'm Senior Director of Client Partnerships. For those of you that don't know Vox Media is a portfolio of premium brands, anywhere from the New York Magazine to Eater to The Cut to Pop Sugar to Thrillist, Now This, which is a huge site in regards to Gen Z and millennials and sustainability and cause related. And probably one of my all-time favorite brands is the Dodo. I mean, who doesn't love a good animal pet story, especially after COVID when we all adopted dogs, cats, what have you. Tiana?
Hi everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi everyone, Tiana Conley, and as said before, I'm the Vice President of Portfolio Strategy of the chocolate portfolio at Mars. I'm a Chicago native and based here in Chicago in our Innovation Center, and have been in the consumer packaged goods industry for over 20 years. I've worked at companies like Procter & Gamble, Kimberly-Clark, Beam Suntory, where I visited this building before for a drink or two, and most recently Kellogg before coming over to Mars in December. It's such a pleasure to be here. Also, the most people I've probably been around in a very long time, so forgive my shell-shockness, but this is pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, we're so excited. Today was one of those days for us. It was a crazy morning as all of our children, all 5 combined, started their first day of school. So mommies have their house back, it's quiet. I don't have kids running in my Zoom or asking me for things. Mommy, I want this, mommy, I want that. But it's a really exciting day. And every time they come back, or when we go back to school, I'm always remiss, and I think about, I get, really deep a little bit. Obviously, I miss them, and only for like 5 minutes, and then when they're gone, it's like beautiful. Anyway, so I'm always thinking about them, and I'm their mother, the purpose of my life. I mean, they are my 3 fabulous children, and I really think about how I want to make the world a better place for them. I want to make their lives a better place. So not to get too deep, think about what your purpose is in life, your company's purpose. And so while Tiana and I were talking quite extensively the past couple days, I wanted her to share something that her son did in regards to purpose and, again, sustainability.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things as a parent that I always try to think about is how, what my purpose is and how I translate that to my kids and their purpose. And one of the values that I try to teach my household is to always use your voice, and how to think about using that in service of what matters to you, and how to use that in service of others. So my son, who's 9 years old, his name's Griffin, really loves sharks. And he learned about the practice of shark finning, which is just a big no-no. And his teacher in 3rd grade, he's now going to 4th, encouraged him over the summer to write a letter to the president. And so he did that. And he wrote a letter to President Biden saying that he was really disappointed in the practice and asked the president, what could you do to ban that practice and preserve the environment, the ocean, and protect sharks. The president wrote him a letter back.
Hey Maddie, do you have that letter? Is she not there? Okay.
I think we had a visual, but anyway, I posted it on my LinkedIn, and it was pretty cool. But the president did write him a letter back saying that he really did care about the environment, that he was really proud of Griffin for using his voice. And I think that's really pertinent today in regard to purpose for a couple of reasons. One, because it really does matter in terms of how we think about what impacts us and motivates us in our personal life, how we translate that to our own personal values, and how we bring that to our work, in my son's instance, education. Number two, that it is a value for our future generations, and as we think about consumerism, that is a motivator for people and how they think about what causes, what brands they align themselves with. It's just not enough to say, hey, this is a cool brand anymore. People are really looking to say, do the values of this brand or this company align with my own personal values? And so I hope that's some of the things that we can talk about today.
Absolutely. Since we're on the topic, let's talk about Cocoa for Generations.
Absolutely. Well, at Mars, we obviously work on chocolate. I mean, what would a talk about Mars be without talk of chocolate? And I have some here. I didn't know how many people were going to be here today, so I'm not sure if I have enough pieces of chocolate for everyone, but I do have some samples with me today for those that are up for some chocolate in the morning. Cocoa for Generations is really Mars' commitment to sustainability practices in the cocoa industry. And just having joined the company as of December, I think it was one of the most compelling things to me in terms of Mars and its commitment to really transforming practices in the industry. And I think one of the most motivating things about it to me was the dollar tag in terms of the commitment to it, $1 billion commitment over 10 years, starting in 2018. So several years into the commitment, but I think it was just really meaningful that when you talk about putting your money where your mouth is, that was really significant to me. And I don't know how many of you know this, but Mars is still a family-owned company, so it's privately held. And there are several values in the company. One of them is called freedom, and not freedom in the American sense, but freedom to operate is really what it's about. And that is really about the idea that the company is not motivated by being beholden to Wall Street. It's really about being financially independent so that it can always do what's right. And that is really something that the family holds dear as a value, and something we as associates of the company really believe in. So then therefore, we can always strive to do what's right for people, the environment, for society, rather than saying, hey, let's always drive the bottom line and try to get the most profits. It's like we want to be profitable so that we can drive practices that are best for society, best for the environment, and things that can truly enable us to have a cyclical and positive impact on the total environment. And I think that's really what Cocoa for Generations really is about. It's about creating an ecosystem that really challenges ourselves to be a leader in the cocoa industry, but also challenges our peers to come along with us. Chocolate is a $100 billion industry, so we're a portion of that, but honestly, we cannot do it by ourselves. It's really important that others come along with us. And we also have to challenge others in the supply chain with us. Because it's a collective effort. So it's really asking everyone to step up together to be a part of that.
Can you talk about pillar, the two different pillars, the ones specifically today?
Absolutely. So it's both present and future focused, but there really are several components of that. So one piece is really about protecting children. And that's really essentially not having children participate in the labor force before it's their time, right? So really making sure that we don't have children, willfully or frankly unwillfully participating in the labor force, monitoring those households, and really investing in education programs, building schools, things like that, investing in their literacy. The second piece is really ensuring that cocoa farmers can have fair income, and advocating for that. So, not just trying to squeeze all the money out so we can have, the cheapest price. As a matter of fact, we actually advocated that that we could have more fair income, and that cocoa farmers could receive a better and fairer price for their income, for their crop. And so that's really a piece of it, and obviously that's advocating against our interests in some ways. The third component of that is really ensuring that we have preservation of our forests. So we don't want to have practices that are just ensuring that we can get as much cocoa as we can. We want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that's sustainable so that we can have more of that crop in the future, but frankly, not in a way that's emitting tons of greenhouse gases. We want to have really sustainable cocoa practices, and frankly, sustainable to farmers in their land as well, so that they can have other crops, rotating crops, continue to maintain and have sources of income throughout different times of the year as well. Other aspects of that include education as well on making sure they can maximize efficiency out of their crops. And the other piece of that, finally, is about women's empowerment. And you say, well, women's empowerment, farmer, isn't that kind of a man's job? First of all, it's kind of stereotypical, but a lot of farmers that are counted as farmers are actually male farmers. Some of that goes to, well, honestly, a lot of gender stereotypes. So sometimes farmers can only be counted as landowners, and in some places, landowners can only be men. But women do a lot of the farming work. So part of that is equality, equity. But secondly, women are actually doing a lot of the farming work. But I think it also goes to something that we really know about society, and Melinda Gates has a really great quote about when you invest in women and girls, you invest in the people that invest in everyone else. And so I think it's really fundamental that we really think about the way that we think about both genders, really thinking about women and how that uplifts the rest of society, because they truly do invest back in everyone else.
That's awesome. I just wanted a little stat that I was just amazed by the year 2025, and this is from Tiana's, gave me such wonderful reading material, and it was really inspirational. I'm not just saying that, having kids and just seeing, what's happening in the environment, women's rights, etc. By the year 2025, 100% of responsible cocoa, there will be a deforestation-free supply chain. And over Mars, and stop me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong here, there's over 5 million farmers across West Africa, Southeast Asia, and Americas. So that's a lot. And so I think that speaks volumes about Mars and about Galaxy as well.
Yeah, actually even 6 million cocoa farmers around the world. 60% of those are in Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. So that's a big, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, in Ghana. So a large proportion of those in Africa. Also Indonesia is another big site as well.
I mean, every time you have a piece of chocolate now, you're not going to think twice about it. I mean, this chocolate is made with love, and I feel like when you bake something and you cook something with love, you can taste it. I mean, I've watched a lot of Top Chef and a lot of cooking competitions, so I know. And plus, obviously, when I cook my mac and cheese for my kids, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Do you want to talk about tomorrow, the pillar for tomorrow?
Well, I think I captured a lot of that in what I was talking about, but I would love to maybe talk about how that translates from the company to the brand. But before I do, I brought a little video along, if it's okay to play that. Galaxy is just the branding for the Dove chocolate brand in the UK, which is where we're leading with this communication campaign. So a huge shout out to our incredible team in the UK who has led with this amazing brand building campaign.
I have some questions for you. How did COVID affect your plans?
Such a big question there. Well, I think in terms of COVID and specifically our efforts on with regard to our support of the cocoa sustainability efforts, we doubled down and really invested even above and beyond what we were doing. We put an additional $5 million investment in supporting cocoa farming communities. That was in form of critical aid, in terms of food, in terms of PPE, in terms of hand washing stations, things like that, in terms of agricultural aid and things like that. So definitely it was really critical and paramount for us to support communities where they didn't necessarily have the ability to go out and safely do their work and continue to be able to uplift those communities through the time.
And can you talk about a few of the organizations you've partnered with, third party?
Absolutely. So it is really, really critical, as I mentioned before, that we have a full ecosystem of support in driving sustainable cocoa. And that plays out in many different ways. The first, I'd say, is really in terms of driving credibility. So organizations like the Rainforest Alliance really help to ensure honesty in the system. And so, for example, when we say that we're responsibly sourced, it's like, just take our word for it. I definitely think, by the way, Mars is 100% an honest company, so you can take our word for it. But as I mentioned, we really want our peer group to come along with us, and so having third-party organizations that can go out and validate that it is indeed responsibly sourced is really, really, really critical. And so organizations like Rainforest Alliance can ensure that there's an industry standard, that everyone's following it, that that result can be verified and validated, and that everyone's following a standard practice, that sort of thing. And so I think that is really where that sort of third party can really come into and play a really important role in terms of sustainable cocoa. Then I think there's a different type of organization in the form of NGOs and organizations like HARE that we mentioned in the video. And that type of organization really partners to provide things like on-the-ground support to really connect with cocoa farmers and cocoa communities to ensure that they are getting support in the way that they want and need to be most empowered and have access to the things that they most need. I think one thing that's really important as we think about helping and supporting organizations is that it doesn't come across in a way that's paternalistic. Like sometimes when we think we're helping somebody, we're helping them in the way that we want to help them, or in the way that, from our viewpoint, that we think they should be helped, rather than asking them, what is help to you? Or what would you like access to? And so really partnering with those types of organizations that really have an intimate understanding of those communities and what support looks like to them, and what would be most empowering and uplifting to them is really, really critical from just a listening skills standpoint, to really ensure that people get what is helpful to them.
Thank you, that was great. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Court.
Hi. I'm wondering, as we know, consumers are looking for brands that they align with and have these sustainable actions. They really put a lot of weight on the action versus telling them that they're sustainable or telling them that they're helping the environment. How does Mars balance the actions with the communications to the consumers about what they're doing in order to not come across as greenwashing?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think there are some examples of inauthentic green communications. Frankly, I think Mars is probably under-rotated on communicating some of these efforts. The majority of efforts to date have probably been more in the trade communication space, not really super consumer facing. The work that I showed you just now is probably the first example of consumer external facing work. So I think that probably we're a little bit under-rotated on the consumer external aspect of things. But I do agree with you that it is something that is a huge watch out, and I think potentially ours and any other company, when you do talk about these efforts, you do open yourself up to some level of criticism, if I'm just being super honest about it. I think that the way that you avoid the accusation of greenwashing is that you're authentic in your efforts and you actually do stuff. I think when you say I'm putting down $1 billion to do this, and when you have real numbers to say, well, I've built 90 schools, well, I've helped hundreds of thousands of farmers, I've invested in these types of programs at the scale of these type of numbers, then I think that really helps steer away from that type of criticism, because you have real numbers and real results to back that up with human stories of people that have truly been impacted. And so I think when you're coming from a truly authentic place, and then you have real results that accompany that, that is how you avoid the accusation of greenwashing.
And then just speaking about the outward-facing message, so we've seen that video, that's Galaxy. Is something coming for the States here? A similar video or consumer-facing message?
Well, we, as I mentioned, we are privately held, so like what I'm able to say about the company is a bit limited, but I would say keep watching the space. I don't want to get in trouble by our communications team, but keep watching the space. I think we've made some big, bold commitments, and they're long-term commitments. For us, it is truly something we're committed to in the long term, and so I would expect to see more.
Great. Any other questions?
Hi. Is there any collaboration between the other companies, meaning the other big chocolate brands out there, or just individual efforts in order to promote healthy cocoa production?
Yes, there are a number of efforts that are happening in terms of elevating the industry. I can't go necessarily into the detail behind that, but as I mentioned, this is a full ecosystem effort, and this is not something we want or desire to do alone, because we need to elevate the entire industry. So our hope is that we'll do it, and we hope that Mondelez and Nestle, and we hope that the industry will spear this on. Like, we don't want to stand out and be alone in this effort. We absolutely want to be a leader. We for sure do want to do that, but we don't want to be standing alone on this either. And there are some compelling things that our Pure Set are doing in this space as well. But I think that this is an area where we all have to hold hands and lift it up and keep pushing and pushing to continue to let all ships rise together.
We have time for one more question.
With the farming, it's all great. What's Mars's stance on packaging? Because I know plastics are contributing to a ton of waste, and so Northern California, raised by hippie parents, is not very concerned about all things green,
100%, and I did focus specifically on cocoa, but we have huge efforts and commitment also in the packaging space. We've had some huge launches in paper packaging that have recently come out on a number of our brands. So this is an area where we're making some huge progress, some very, very exciting initiatives in the space. A lot that has recently come out, and a lot more to come. I'm super excited about it, really passionate, tons and tons and tons of R&D, a lot of partnerships, that sort of thing. So really, really keep watching this space, a lot to come.
Great. All right. Thank you for your time.